Hey guys, Marilyn here. In today's video, I wanted to go ahead and share with you how I make masks. Now, I know a lot of people have already been making masks, as I have as well for the past several months. And I just decided I have perfected mask making and with a great fit, so there's no gaping sides or anything like that. So I just wanted to share with you how I make them. All right. So the first thing, I have tried different patterns. However, my absolute favorite pattern is the Cricut pattern. So if you are a Cricut user and you have a Cricut Explorer Air or a Cricut Explorer machine, or even the Maker, in the Maker, you can actually cut out your fabric in your interfacing. With the Explorer, you can, if you put heat and bond onto your fabric, but another way that you can make your masks if you are a Cricut user and you have one of the Explorer family machines or the Maker is cutting out your templates. Now, at the very beginning of cutting masks, I actually was putting it through the Maker and allowing the Maker to cut it with the rotary tool. However, I like using the templates. It's a lot quicker. So I have, with this craft board from Cricut, it is, let me grab that real quick. The craft board that I use is this craft board, okay? And I have the white, the black, and the natural in an entire package. And I've used most of my white up for these patterns. And so I cut the small youth size. So you have, and I didn't cut all 4 pieces because, as you know, if you're a Cricut user and you've already made these masks, you know that you need 2 pieces of this one, of the exterior, and 2 pieces of the interior. So these are nice and thick that you can trace around onto your fabric. So this is quite helpful. So this is the small youth. Here is the youth size, which almost kind of fits some adults if you have kind of not a big face. So there's that one. And this is the mask pattern that I use for most of all my masks. It's the small and medium. This one seems to be a good size for most adults. And then we also have the large, which I have not had to use. But these patterns, this Cricut pattern is my absolute favorite. Now what I also did is I took the time to try to cut out my patterns on these plastic mats that you get from Dollar Tree. So I have a plastic template for my mask. Again, 2 interior and 2 exterior. So the first thing we're gonna do, and I already started and I'm like, oh, let me do this on video. So what you wanna do is you take your fabric and then you just take your pattern, and you know that you're going to need one going in this direction and you need another one in this direction. You could fold your fabric and do it that way, or you can do them individually. But because I want specific things on the masks. So for example, this is Alexander Henry fabric. I want the cat on one side of the mask, and then my daughter picked this angry blowfish for the other side. So we're going to do those 2. So all you have to do is take your pattern, and I have these FRIXION pens that I got for $5 on Amazon. I absolutely love these. These actually erase with heat. So with your iron, you can go ahead and erase the lines. So what I've done is I just put this down, and then I go ahead and trace my pattern. So as you can see, I've already started. And so I'm just going to go all the way around my pattern to trace out my lines. And this is what I have here. So I've picked out the cat on this side. And I've already done the blowfish on this side. So that's the 2 exterior pieces. Now, if I wanted to conserve this fabric and do more exterior pieces out of this cute little Alexander Henry fabric, then I can use a different color for the inside of my mask. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, what do I have that matches? You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and use the same fabric off of this little fat quarter. So now I have 2 interior pieces, and then I have my 2 exterior pieces for my mask. All right. Now the next thing that I like to do is I like to line all my masks with this featherweight fusible interfacing. Again, it's featherweight, and there's also a P44 that's absolutely light. I stopped using the OLFA fabric as an extra barrier because it was extremely hot and kind of thick, and although it is kind of water repellent, it's just too much. So if you line your fabric pieces nicely with some interfacing, it also gives your mask some structure. So we're going to do the same thing for all the pieces. So we're going to do the exterior piece with the interfacing, and then we're also going to do the interior pieces for the interfacing. So I'm going to do that off camera, and I'll be back. All right, guys, so my interfacing is cut. I have my featherweight pieces here, extremely light. All right, and that's my cat. Oh, she sees my fabric hanging from the chair. All right, so we have the featherweight pieces that I've already cut out, and I needed one more piece, so I'll show you how you can do it this way as well. I have my cordless iron ready to go, so I'm going to go ahead and press my pieces first, and then we'll attach our interfacing. And as you can see, those blue lines disappeared, but even so, even if they were still there, those are going to be hidden with the stitches. So as you can see, there's a little bit of blue on this fabric, so we're going to get rid of those, but we're ironing our pieces as well. Okay, there's that one. Here's the next one. Gonna hot iron that nice and flat, and this piece as well. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and attach our interfacing to the inside of our pieces. So we're just gonna line it up, and then we're going to go ahead and press it onto the fabric. And make sure your glue side is facing down. So we're just going to press and then press. Okay. So there we go. So this piece is nicely interfaced with a featherweight interfacing. Alright guys, so all my pieces are nicely interfaced, and as you can see, they have a nice little bit of structure to them as well, and they're not too heavy. Again, it was a featherweight interfacing, fusible interfacing that I put on all the outside or the inside pieces, and I've trimmed them down. Oops, need to trim this one down. So if you have any excess like that, just trim it down so it's nice and clean, even though that's going to be hidden within your stitches, but I like to make everything nice and clean anyway. All right, okay, there we go. So we're going to go ahead and start stitching. All right guys, so I'm here at my sewing machine, and what you want to do is you want to take your 2 pieces, your 2 exterior pieces, and you want to match them up. Okay, so we have the 2 longer pieces together. Okay, so we're going to match up the corners. And if there's a little interfacing there anyway, it's okay. We're going to get rid of that. Forgot to trim it here. Not a big deal, but because I'm a little obsessive when it comes to crafting, even though that's not going to show, I'm going to snip it off with my little snips here. All right, and I accidentally cut my fabric, but that's okay. All right, not a big deal. All right, so we're gonna match up our corners and we're gonna match it all the way up to the end here. And then we're gonna stitch it together. I like to always use the outside of the edge of my foot. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and put the foot down. And I also like to back stitch as well. So, oops, I have on my zigzag stitch. All right, guys, so here we go. I had the zigzag stitch on because I was making masks and I like to finish off my ends with this little zigzag stitch before we move forward, but we'll get to that point. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a back stitch and then forward, and I'm just going to maneuver my piece around the edge of my foot. Okay, we're going to back stitch, and there we go. So we're going to do that with the other one as well, okay? And then we're going to snip that off. We're going to trim them down with my pinking shears. Okay, so this is lined up all the way around. We're good to go. Let's go ahead and set this into the machine. Perfect. So now we're done with that. Now what I like to do is I like to trim these down. The part here, we're going to trim this down with the pinking shears. Let me move this over. Zoom out just a little bit. My entire dining room is got sewing stuff everywhere. So we're just going to trim this down all the way to the top. Gives it a nice clean finish and less fraying on the inside. So let's go ahead and trim this one down. Perfect. Okay. So the next thing I like to do is to clean up the edges, and instead of having to get up all the time, I am making a stack of masks and pressing out all these edges. I just use my little pressing tool from Clover, this little piece here. So I just fold down my edges and then I use this to press it down, which I'll show you. And my favorite tool to have next to my sewing machine when I'm cutting or sewing is these little snips. I love these little things here. So, all right, let me move the camera over. All right, so what I like to do is fold over my ends. And believe it or not, when I started making masks, I would use the iron to press all these down. But this is the tool that I just use as I go along to create my little press right there, my pressed little seam that I want to sew. So this is how I do it. These are already interfaced, and then this is where I do my zigzag stitch. So I'm going to do the other one real quick. Press my seam, and then I'll do this on the other side. So I have a nice little clean finish. Okay, so now we're going to put the machine onto our zigzag stitch, and then we're going to zigzag the edges. So here we go. Sorry, my dining room table is glass, so I apologize if it's a little hard to see. I'm going to go ahead and put this in here, and we're going to get going. No need to do a back stitch with the zigzag, because we still need to attach these pieces together, and that's all going to be tied in. we're going to do the other side. And then our other pieces as well. Sometimes I leave that thread up after I've cut it. We'll start right there. One more stitch. All right, so now we have our nice clean finish. Okay, so we're going to do that on the next piece. The next thing I like to do, which gives the masks a perfect fit, is to do the little pin tuck. So you want to make sure that your tuck goes down and not up. So when you're wearing it, you're not getting all that little dust and everything on the outside. So the longer piece is my exterior piece, right? This piece is going to be my exterior piece. This is the inside piece. So I'm going to take the exterior piece. I'm going to create my little pin tuck here. You can press it if you'd like, but I like to just hold it down. I like to just finger press it and then take it straight to the machine. But now I'm going to switch my stitch to a straight stitch. And I'm just going to tack this down. Do I care that it's a straight stitch over the zigzag? No, not really. So... and I'm going to back stitch and then go forward, and that's it. So we've created this little tuck here, so when we put it on, we don't have that big gap on the side of our face. So we're going to do the other side now, and then what you'll want to do is you want to match up your width with the other side. Okay, so that width pretty much matches, but let me move my tuck down a little ways because it doesn't look like it was in the same spot. Let's measure this and see if it's about the same. And the width on both of them are about the same. So I'm going to go ahead and tack this one down. Right there. We're going to go forward, backwards, and then forward again. Okay, so now we have our little tack down stitches. I'm going to go ahead and do that with the other piece, and then we're going to stitch these together. All right, guys, so we have our two pieces stitched. They're stitched together in the front. We've trimmed them down with the pinking shears. We've cleaned up the edges by folding them down and doing a zigzag stitch. And now we have created these pin tucks on the sides of the mask. All right, we've done that for the inside piece and the exterior piece. So now we're going to go ahead and let's turn the inside one facing the outside of the fabric. All right, so as you can see, even the inside has the little pin tucks, right? You can go ahead and press that, but we're going to press it when we're done. So now you're going to take the exterior piece. I had to put my green mat down because my dining room table is glass and I didn't want to. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to line up our two seams together in the center first. Okay, you're going to press one of the edges, one of the seams to one side and the other seam to the other side so you can avoid some bulk. But let me grab it would help if I had my clips ready. So let's go ahead and meet the seams in the center and move one seam to one direction and one to the other. We're going to clip that, and then you're just going to go ahead and line up your edges and clip along the way. Okay, right to the edge there. And we're only going to clip one side of the mask first. So we're going to do the top side first, and then we'll go ahead and clip the bottom one and then stitch the bottom one. I'm not going to clip them together at the same time. Okay, and then we also have this edge over here. Okay, and right here at the edge. I really don't need another one there, but we're just going to put one there. And now we're going to stitch all the way around this edge. Again, I like to use close to the edge of my foot on my machine, so then I have room to insert my twist tie. Alright, so I've inserted my fabric underneath my foot here, and now I have my needle set to where this part starts. So we're just going to stitch all the way around to the bottom of the mask. So my foot is down. I'm just going to remove that one for now. And we're going to follow by looking at the edge of the foot. And you do want to back stitch. I did not back stitch, but we'll be fine. You do want to back stitch though, so. And you kind of want to go slow around this part here. But once you get used to going around curves, it's not that bad. Curves are not that intimidating. Okay. All right. Okay, so now we have our stitch, and we're also going to trim this down with our pinking shears as well. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and pin the bottom of the mask. We're going to pin the bottom of the mask, matching the seams together, making sure that the seams go in the same direction as the top of the mask, and then we're going to stitch that closed. Okay, so let's go to the mat and trim this down. All right, so we're gonna go in at an angle. We don't want to quite trim down where the seam starts or the stitching starts. I'm gonna trim this bulk around the nose off. So I've cleaned off my edges. All right. So now we're going to turn this inside right. So now, as you can see, our mask is taking shape. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and press this with my iron. And you want to make sure that your seams are nice and flat and they're not tucked in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and press all the way around the mask, including pressing down my little pin tucks, aka little pleats. And then we're also going to press this down nice and flat on the inside. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So now we're ready to go ahead and put the stitch on the top so we can insert our twist tie, and then I'm going to do the same stitch on the bottom just to give it a clean finish. So let's go back to the sewing machine. Now I'm actually feeling for where that other seam on the bottom is, and I feel the bump right here. So that's where I'm going to start my stitching. So I'm going to go ahead, put my threads in the back, and I'm going to line this up where my little bump is at. Again, lining the edge of my foot to the edge of my fabric. It's a little too far out. So I'm going to go ahead and backstitch. And sometimes I do sew a little slower. There's my top stitch. Nice and clean. So then that gives me room to insert my twist tie. But we're going to go ahead and finish the bottom first before we insert the twist tie. So my bump is right there. We're going to go ahead and backstitch. Right, so there's my mask, there's my stitching. So cute. There's my little pin tuck. And now this is where we put the elastic. So then we'll fold that over. Now if I'm giving somebody a mask, I use elastic that is just inserted and I leave them untied. Or if I'm making a mask for my daughter or myself, I actually use the flat elastic versus the cording, and then I just stitch it down permanently. But let's go ahead and continue. All right, so I've shown this before. This is like a plastic twist tie. It's clear. I bought this entire thing on Amazon, I believe, for like $7.50. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut off about 5 inches for the nose piece. That looks about 5, I think. Let's see. It's about 5. It's a little under 5, but I'm okay with that. I don't have a big face. So here is our cute little mask. Can see it a little better now than in my dining room. That little I stitched that little fold. Well, that's going to go away anyway because we're going to go ahead, stitch this down, and we're going to run the cording through that. But look at how nice and clean it looks. It's got a little bit of structure to it. Super cute. All right. So now I'm going to take this twist tie and I'm going to insert it with the flat side going down, and we're going to feed it through the inside of the mask. Sometimes you got to flatten up the mask a little bit to run it through. So now what I like to do, just to kind of get a good measurement of where my ends are at. Okay, so there's a little more on the right side than the left. I'll fold it down the center and then I'll feel where my ends are at. So this is where one end is at and here is where the other one is at. This side is a little shorter than the right side. That will bother me. So I have to fold this in the center seam. And now my ends are matching. So now what I'm going to do to prevent this from sliding out when I wash my mask, I'm going to go ahead and do a stitch here. And then I'm going to do a stitch on this side. Okay, so we're going to do a couple stitches forward and in reverse as well. And we're going to snip this off. My snips are across the way, so I'm just going to use those. And then of course I'll clean this up a little bit, but as you can see, there's my enclosed stitch. So now I'm going to do that on the other side. Alright guys, so I have my cording here. Normally I would use the flat elastic for my masks, but for tutorial purposes I'm going to use this cording here. So I'm just gonna estimate, I've already done one side, If it were for somebody else, I would cut these a little longer so they could adjust them accordingly. So I've already stitched one side down. Now I'm going to show you how I stitch this inside. So I'm just going to take this, wrap it around. Going to wrap that around. I'm going to clip it, meeting the edges of the fabric together. We're going to do that for the inside and then for the end as well. Okay, so I'm not going to put a clip on there because I'm going to start stitching this closed. Okay, we're going to meet the needle to the edge. You want to definitely back stitch a couple times because this is where you have the most wear is on the end there from pulling it on and pulling it off. I'm just going to run this stitch along my zigzag stitch, and then we're going to back stitch. I do it a couple times just to secure it, and there we go. So now I can tie these and adjust it and make my mask. So now we're going to go ahead. I've tied one end. I'm not going to clip it yet because I want to try it on and make sure it fits before I cut these ends off and burn the edges. Oh, I had to run upstairs. Okay, so we're going to do that. Let me try it on. Alright guys, so here is the finished mask. Super cute. You have your twist tie up here enclosed in these stitches. On the top, you have your nice little pin tucks to prevent gaping on the sides. I've inserted the elastic cording. I did tie them off with a knot. I trimmed them down. This is the trimmed part. I burnt the edges. I burned the edges down with a lighter really quick just to fuse those little fraying hairs down. And then I ran the knot through the inside of this casing so it's got a nice and clean finish. So I'll show you what it looks like on my face. Alright guys, so here is my perfect little mask. I can speak comfortably, I can breathe comfortably. It's not touching my lips. As you can see, I've pushed down the twist tie on the top of my face, so there is no gap in here. It lays nice and flat on both sides of my face. It's nice and flat on the bottom of my face, and this is why I love the Cricut pattern. Now, the Cricut pattern doesn't tell you to create that little pin tuck on the sides, but when COVID first hit, I jumped on the bandwagon for making masks because I know how to sew. And then I thought, well, there's these big gaps on the side. How can I get rid of that? So then I just went ahead and folded the fabric, created that little pin tuck. And it's cute, but it's also helpful for not creating any gaps. So that's what it looks like. I've made hundreds of these, but this one is super cute because it's Alexander Henry fabric. But thanks guys for watching, and I might even show you my entire face in the next video. I really do have a face. So at any rate, again, it don't cost nothing to be nice, so be nice, and don't forget to wash your hands. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.